Hey, this is Noel Powell from creationeffects.com. I was playing around in After Effects and was able to make this cool tracking particle effect. And I thought I'd do a tutorial on how to do it with your own footage. A week ago, I would have said this was impossible to do in After Effects without a plugin. But after 23 years of using After Effects, I'm still discovering new things, which is why I love After Effects so much. So I'm going to show you the basic workflow of how I set this up. But if you want a more polished version of this effect, I turned it into a template that I called Sticky Particles Effect. It's just $15 and it's all set up for you with lots of customization controls and 12 different presets. So you could right away get any of the looks that you're seeing now. So that's available as a standalone After Effects template, or I also added it to 2 existing packs of stylized effects for your footage that include a bunch of other similar effects like this. So I'll show those off at the end and I'll put the links in the description. But if you just want to learn how to do this yourself, you can just follow along. So I've got some footage in a comp here and there's a lot of movement, which is good. Not just the subject is moving, but the camera is moving through the environment, and that'll look cool in the effect. And the first thing I want to do is check the levels of this clip. We want there to be a good dynamic range so that the darkest parts are close to pure black and the lightest parts are close to pure white. If the footage is under or overexposed, you might get errors when you camera track the footage if you skip this step. So I'll add a levels individual controls effect and bring the arrows inward to about where the hills start and end in our histogram. And you could keyframe these values if needed, if the exposure changes throughout the shot. All right, we want about 5 copies of our footage so that we can have a lot of track points. Each time we camera track the footage, it will create different points. So you can make as many copies as you want for the amount of points that you want. I'll duplicate the comp with my footage 4 times. And the first one can just be our normal footage. And the rest of these will each have a different brightness level. And that's what's going to cause our camera tracker to find different track points for each copy of our footage. So for this one, I'll add a levels effect. And I'll just bring the midtones over about this much to brighten it up. And you could experiment with other effects if you want, like invert or curves. All right, I'll copy that levels effect and I'll paste it in the next pre-comp. And I'll bring this arrow over even further. And again, I'll make this one a little darker than the normal footage. And for the last one, I'll make it a lot darker. Okay, we'll do all our camera tracking in a new comp. I'll just drag my first pre-comp with my footage into the new comp icon here. And I'll name that comp something, whatever you want. And an important thing to note is you don't want this layer to be really long or it'll take a long time to analyze. So trim it to the duration that you need or that you want to render. And I'll look for the 3D camera tracker effect and I'll put that on my footage. And you can see it already started analyzing, it's annoying because I didn't tell it to do that. I didn't give it permission and now I feel violated, but we can just cancel that. And also I'll add a fast box blur effect and a levels effect. And just a few things to set up in this effect. We need to turn on render track points. For this drop down, set it to 2D solved. You can experiment with 3D solved. That'll make it so that the closer track points are larger and the further away track points are smaller, which sounds like it would be great, right? But then you get really huge track points that just kind of appear and disappear out of nowhere, so it's kind of distracting. Also down here in advanced, turn on detailed analysis, and that will create more track points. And I'll turn on hide warning banner because they pop up all the time and they're really not that important. Okay, so now we can click analyze and wait for it to finish. It might take 30 seconds or so. And now we see our points, but we want to hide this footage. So I'll add one more effect, a transform effect. And I'll put it before the 3D camera tracker and turn the opacity down to 0. All right, here's what we have so far. We can increase or decrease the size of the points if we want, and you're probably not wanting little crosshairs as your points, so we'll turn up the blur amount a little bit to soften that shape. And then in the levels effect, I'll switch this to the alpha channel and increase the contrast until those edges become hard again and it makes little circles. And you can play with the arrows to tweak the size. And now we just make 4 more of these, but this will go quick. We'll just duplicate the layer. That's Control or Command D, and I'll name that one Ballerina 2 and keep duplicating. And then I'll select that second one and I'll swap the source of this layer by holding down the Alt or the Option key on the keyboard and dragging that second pre-comp with my footage into the comp. And again for the third layer, hold down Alt or Option and drag in the pre-comp. Now each of these layers has a different brightness level, so they should create different track points. I'll just go through and click Analyze for each one, and you can ignore that warning. Another thing you can do, I'll drag a copy of my normal footage into here and maybe rename it something less confusing and hide the layer. And then for all of my points layers, I'll set the luma matte to my footage. And it will create some variation in the brightness and make the image look more recognizable. And then this last part is optional, but I really like to make them glow. And the normal glow effect just doesn't cut it for me. I don't touch it anymore. So I made a free preset called Afterglow that does the same thing as the expensive plugins. It adds a much brighter glow with a more realistic and gradual fall off. And I can adjust the controls to get the right amount of glow. Like I said, this is a freebie, so you can go and download it and never have to use the old glow again. Yay! I'll leave a link in the description for that, and you can go and check out the video. Like I said, I made a much more polished version of this effect with a bunch of looks to choose from and customization controls, and I added them to 2 bundles. One is Creation Trippy Effects, which is a collection of trippy looking effects for your footage, as well as trippy animations. This effect struck me as pretty trippy, so I thought that was a good addition to the pack. The other bundle I added this to is Creation Art Effects, which has 50 unique artsy looks for your footage, so you can turn your footage into animated art in a bunch of different artistic mediums like pencil sketch, or Van Gogh painting, or halftone effects, claymation, paper cutout, watercolor, graffiti, 8-bit animation, and just a whole bunch more. All the effects are customizable with simple controls, so you can go check that out. It's a popular template, and it's better than ever because I keep adding new effects like this. The links are in the description. Be sure to subscribe for more tutorials and effects and free tools for After Effects. That's it for me. Thanks for watching.